In this video, we're going to step away from code for just a little bit because what I want to do is I want to look at JavaScript from 20,000 feet, if you will. I want to look at it from a distance and help you to understand some basic aspects about the language. Don't worry, I'm not going to go into too much nerd detail, but it's important that you understand something about JavaScript, its basic structure moving forward, because it's just going to make it much easier for you to take in the new stuff. And by the way, we're just a hop, skip, and a jump from getting into some practical JavaScript like form validation and stuff like that. So let's just jump into this, and I think you'll see how important it is to learn. So what exactly I want to teach you is, well, the title says it, JavaScript OOP. OOP is short for Object-Oriented Programming. And what I want to tell you is that JavaScript is a object-oriented language. So that's a mouthful, and in about 2 minutes you're going to understand what that means. In front of you is this really basic diagram that I created to help you understand why JavaScript is called an object-oriented language. If you think about that sentence, it's telling you the JavaScript language is oriented to be in the form of objects. Oriented meaning, it's like sexual orientation. Some people are gay, some people are straight. JavaScript is oriented, okay, it's not the greatest analogy, but you get the idea. JavaScript is oriented, is designed to be made up of a series of objects. So pretend this gray box here is the JavaScript engine, is JavaScript, and pretend, I got these little objects here, what I created. So let me just drag them in so you get the idea of what I'm talking about. See, you see, JavaScript is actually made up of all kinds of independent objects. And each of these objects, you see the little gears here, have their own set of functionality, their own jobs, the things that they can do. And that's why I got little gears. So an object may have many different tasks, many different functionalities, think functions, and they can have just a couple. So JavaScript is basically laid out this way. The program itself is built up by having a series of discrete objects, basically independent from each other. And these objects each have their own set of functionalities or a set of functions. So if I was going to make an analogy of this, let's pretend that JavaScript was a McDonald's, for instance, a restaurant. Inside the restaurant, you have a bunch of people, and let's call these people objects. So, okay, I know it's insulting, but for the sake of the analogy. So let's say this object was a cook, and this object was a maintenance guy, and this object was a cashier. So like the cook object, he has several, or she has several functionalities, several jobs that they do. They make Big Macs, or they make French fries, or they make, they cut onions up. Same thing with the maintenance guy. He has, or she has, a set of functions. For instance, they may be mop floor or change garbage bags. And of course, the cashier is, they operate the cash, so they have functions like, to sell Big Macs or sell fries. I don't know. You get the idea. If you think of it that way, you think of JavaScript as being a giant engine, and inside that engine, you have a whole bunch of independent little engines that do all kinds of different things. So in JavaScript, we've looked at the document.write function in the past, if you recall, and document is an object inside of JavaScript. So let's look at some of the JavaScript objects so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. So here's a little diagram that I put together, and you can see the JavaScript hierarchy here. It's a hierarchy like think of a military hierarchy. You have like, you got your generals, then you got your colonels and your majors and so on. Same thing with JavaScript. You have a whole hierarchy of objects, and some objects contain many other little objects. So for instance, if you look in the window object, this box here is an object. Inside a window, you also have the frame object, history object, location object, document object. Remember that? And inside of document object, you have a whole bunch of other objects. So you can see the hierarchy as we go down go down the tree. They call this a hierarchy tree. Remember when we use the function document.write. Now, document.write, let's do this properly. So we put our little braces. Now remember, we know write is a function because it's got the two braces in front here, two brackets. So document, I just touched on that before, but document is basically a reference to this object here, the document object. So when we type out document in JavaScript, we're telling the JavaScript engine we want to use the document object and we want to use its write function. We don't see the write function under document here because I'm not listing the functions inside of all of these objects. These are just a set of objects. So this is a document object, and we know, because I told you, that there's a write function inside of document. The document object happens to contain a whole bunch of other very useful functions, and the reason I've made it bold here is because it's probably the most important object in the entire JavaScript hierarchy. Video is that JavaScript is a language that's made up of all kinds of little objects. In each of these objects, you have all kinds of functionality. Each object is responsible for one or many different functions. And I taught you about this one, the document write function. And you notice a little period here. I'm going to jump ahead. You see this little period here between document dot and then we have write. So this dot tells JavaScript that we are looking for something, a function, inside of the document object. You can think of this dot as an arrow. They call them, programmers call them pointers. In some other languages, they actually use an arrow kind of like this. So now you know why there's a dot. When we wrote document.write, you know why there's a dot, because when JavaScript sees the dot, it knows that we're looking for the function write, and we know that JavaScript knows we're looking for a function because we put the braces here rather. It knows we're looking for a function in the document object. I hope that makes sense. We're going to jump into this a lot more in future videos, so I think this will clarify this for you if it's a little hazy. So again, just take away that JavaScript is basically a language made up of a whole bunch of little objects that live inside the JavaScript engine, and each object is responsible for a whole bunch of jobs, a whole bunch of tasks, a whole bunch of functions that it has.